I moved to the Phoenix area 9 years ago, and I've absolutely loved my experience here, but there are definitely some things that have caught me off guard about living in Phoenix that I kind of want to warn you about before you move to this area. And so I want to give you the true, honest, worst things about living in Phoenix. This isn't a pros and cons video. This is just a cons video about Phoenix and things you should know before you move to this area. Some of them may be more obvious than others, but truly they're things I just didn't know before I moved here that could be a red flag for some people, or also just could be something you should know before you moved here. So hopefully this video is going to be helpful. And if you are moving from out of state, I have this totally free moving to Phoenix guide, kind of everything you should know about the Phoenix area, everything I wish I knew before I moved here. A lot of that's going to be in this video, but that guide's even more comprehensive. So there's a link in the description to download it, or just email me and I'll send it right over to you. Probably the most surprising thing I learned about living in Phoenix after I moved here was how the central parts of Phoenix are not the best places to live. In terms of higher crime rate, in terms of lower grades in schools, and just overall some of the areas being run down. You see houses with bars on the windows and not kept up landscaping. You see a lot of that in the central Phoenix area. And I think in general, most downtowns, that's the case. That's where you see more homeless people. That's where you see a higher crime rate is in downtown. But even the surrounding areas of Phoenix, if you go south of downtown, if you go north of downtown, most of those areas are a bit more run down than I would have expected for such a large metropolitan area. I've always imagined, right, the closer you are to downtown, it's going to be a higher priced area. It's all about location, 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 and yet some of these areas are just a bit more run down, except for some of the extremely high-end parts of Phoenix. And that's what surprised me, right? You have some of these areas in central Phoenix where there's Midtown, where you have some amazing luxury condos. And then right down the street, you have these homes built in the 40s and 50s that look like they haven't been touched in 50 years just from them not being upkept. And then you could go down the street into Phoenix into places like Biltmore or Arcadia, which are some of the best places to live in all of Arizona, just high-end communities, really nice homes, definitely on the luxury side of the Phoenix area. And you see these, and that's really one of the better and only high-end neighborhoods in the central Phoenix area. So you have that, and then again, you go a few streets down and you have a bit more run-down part of Phoenix with a higher crime rate. And so that definitely surprised me, that when I've realized since I've lived here for 9 years is I know very few people that actually live in Phoenix. Now, the more north you go, you do see things kind of calm down in terms of the crime rates going down, or if you go more south into a place like Ahwatukee, you do see lower crime rates. But in general, I know very few people that actually live in the city of Phoenix. The surrounding towns are where a majority of people are moving to. Places like Chandler, Scottsdale, Peoria, Surprise, all those different kind of outskirt towns. That's where I see a lot of people actually living in. And yet surprisingly, I don't know very many people that live in Phoenix. Now, I don't live in the city of Phoenix itself, so maybe that's why I don't know as many people living inside of Phoenix. And so maybe it just could be my sphere doesn't live in Phoenix. But in general, I work with a lot of people moving from out of state, and very few of them pick the actual city of Phoenix to live in. They're often picking the surrounding cities and areas to move to. So that was definitely a surprise. Basically, the central parts, unless you're over $1 million, you might not be in the nicest of neighborhood. There are some quite unique and cool historic districts in the uptown area of Phoenix, but those are extremely small homes in general. We're talking like 1,000 square feet and less is pretty often to see there. So unless you're looking for that kind of niche specific type of home, you tend to be in a higher crime rate area in that central Phoenix, which that just surprised me moving here. I think of Phoenix, I think of some higher end areas, and that's just not what you see in the central Phoenix area. Now, I do of course have to talk about the heat. Now, I knew about the heat before I lived here, but it is still one of the worst parts about living in Phoenix, right? If we had weather like Southern California, our prices would be like Southern California, but we do not, right? I'd say maybe 8 months of the year I enjoy our weather, but then there are 4 months, really about June to the end of September, that are just straight up hot, right? And July and August being the absolute worst, where you see a lot of temperatures over 110 degrees, and it's hot. There's no way to get around it. It's extremely hot. It's not fun to be outside in 110. And some of the things that surprised me about that, right? I knew it would be hot, but some of the unique things that surprised me about the heat were that it doesn't cool down at night. That was a shock to me, right? I played basketball in college. I got out of the gym about 10 p.m. one night, and it was in August, right? Kind of beginning of the year. I get out of the gym, and it was 105 degrees at 10 p.m. at night. How is that possible? I do not know. That is special to Phoenix alone, I think. So it truly does not cool down at night in those extremely hot months. Now, the nice thing is we are dry heat, so if you're under a fan, you honestly can be outside and it not be that bad. You're not just sticky all the time like in the humid areas, but it is hot and it does damage things as well. That was kind of new to me, right? You don't really want to leave things just sitting outside, right? Like car paint, it's going to be damaged if you're leaving it outside 24/7. So having a car in the garage is a huge plus. Also, like your car battery goes dead more often. I think a big factor is the heat, but also because of the heat, you're running your AC a lot more, so that ends up using car battery as well. So that's definitely something that I just didn't know before I moved here. But in general, anything you leave outside for long periods, it's either going to get faded by the paint, or if it's any sort of mechanical thing, like if you're leaving tools outside, they're probably going to go bad sooner than later. Something to do with the mechanical system will end up going bad. Oh, also a surprising thing was that turf, synthetic grass, and even grass itself can get hot, but synthetic grass gets extremely hot over summer. So that was a surprise to me. We moved into a house with turf, which, don't get me wrong, I actually really liked having the turf. You don't have to worry about watering your grass a ton, but you almost have to spray it down, especially if kids or a dog and they're going outside in the middle of the day. You have to spray it down to cool it off. So that was something new to me that I kind of wish I knew it before I moved here, because we were like, man, this turf, it is still very nice and way better than watering our grass, but if we go outside in the middle of summer, we got to water it down before we go out there, especially in the middle of the day. So that was something kind of wish I knew before I moved here. Also, the busyness in the spring was kind of a surprise to me, and that's an annoyance to a lot of people in the Phoenix area. Now, don't get me wrong, small businesses and any business in general, they thrive in the months of February and March. That is our peak season here in the Phoenix area of tourism. A big factor for that is spring training, but we also just have big events happening. The waste management happens every year there, brings hundreds of thousands of people in to watch that, and so it just gets really busy in February and March. It's kind of just a time where the roads are busier, the restaurants are harder to get reservations, the fun things to do Friday and Saturday nights get a lot more packed. So it is fun that more things are happening during that season, but it was like kind of a surprise to me. Like, you start to realize like about mid-March, you're like, man, everything has been difficult to get into, right? Getting a dinner reservation can be hard on a Friday night now, where typically it's not that hard unless it's some unique restaurant, or you're driving on the freeway at like 2 p.m. and it's busier than you would expect to, and that's because it's our peak season of months. And a complaint that a lot of people have, I'm not going to go on record making it myself, but a lot of the people coming into town are what we call snowbirds. So they're people that visit from areas that get snow, right? In February, they got 2 feet of snow in Minnesota. They come down and visit us in Phoenix, where we've got 75-degree weather and sunshine, and they stay here. Some people stay here for 6 months. Some people just stay here for a month or two. And those people tend to be retirees, which can be maybe a little bit slower of drivers. We see that complaint a little bit often in Phoenix area. I'm not going to be the one to go on record to say that, but other people do say that about the snowbirds here in the Phoenix area. So not only is it busier, but sometimes the roads are a little bit slower than you would expect, even if they're a bit more open. So that is a complaint about our kind of busyness of the season there. Another complaint, and I mean, I guess I could have figured this out, but it is an annoyance that as you live here, you kind of wish it wasn't like this, is just the desertscape itself. Yes, the surrounding areas, of course, are dirt and desert. That's just what our open space are. If you're in a place like North Scottsdale, you actually see a lot more lush greenery. A very odd stat is that we have one of the most lush deserts in the world, which doesn't make sense that deserts can be lush, but then you go to North Scottsdale and you're like, why is it so green here? And it's because we are one of the wettest and lush deserts in the entire world, and so that's why we have some more natural plants. But in general, just the desertscape, and it's more the houses that I'm talking about in the neighborhoods. You see a lot of neighborhoods where all of the houses are painted a desert type of a desert tone, right? You see a lot of tans or light grays or browns. You see off-white, but you don't see many unique colors. You don't see a lot of blues or yellows, maroon, red. You don't see those colors in really any neighborhood in the Phoenix area. Everything is so desert toned, which then maybe that's nice. Kind of things look similar. You don't see any oddball homes, but in general, I mean, I'd like to see some color in my neighborhood. And also just the front yards. You see a lot less grass in front yards, and if it is, it's probably turf, which at least looks nice, but you know it's not real grass. But you do see a lot of desertscape, right? You see rocks, you can sometimes even see dirt front yards, and so you see a lot of desertscape, which in general, I mean, if I was to pick, I'd rather see a really cool grass front yard with a big tree and a swing, things like that. You don't see a lot of that in the Phoenix area just because, well, we're a desert, and maintaining grass takes some effort, and having trees takes some effort. They can easily die off in their beginning years because of the heat. So in general, you see a lot lot more desertscape, and that's definitely a negative to the Phoenix area, that you just don't get to see the lush greenery and open spaces like you can in a lot of other areas. So those are some of the worst parts about Phoenix. Obviously the heat is just unavoidable. It's hot, it's not fun. I don't recommend the heat, but if you're gonna live in Phoenix, you gotta know about the heat, you gotta know about the negatives. The central parts of Phoenix not being as nice as I expected was definitely a surprise. There are definitely tons of great surrounding neighborhoods, but the central part, I see very few people moving from out of state and actually picking that unless they're in one of those higher priced neighborhoods that we talked about. The busyness of spring was a surprise as well, just how busy it gets and how just something you don't know about the area, and things that usually are very easy to get access to or to go on the roads, and then all of a sudden you're backed up in traffic at 2 p.m. That can be a definite annoyance. And then also the desertscape to the homes and the communities, you see a lot of that. There are some unique communities that have a lot more grass and trees inside of them, but those have to be fairly well planned, because just in general, the natural areas of Phoenix do not have that greenery. And so you see a lot more of that desertscape, which just not the most prettiest thing to look at. So those are some of the worst parts about living in Phoenix. In reality, I have loved living here. I've even convinced some family members to move to the Phoenix area from out of state, from California, move here, save a bunch of money on their house and on their taxes and all that good stuff. So if you want help moving into the Phoenix area, I'd love to help you. I'm a realtor here in the area. My email and number on the screen. Thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos about living in Arizona.